Okay, so in the movies and on TV, poisoning someone is a pretty common way of getting rid of them. And it makes for some good suspense and drama. But are any of those poisons actually legitimate? Or at least within the realm of possibility? Or is it all just Hollywood? Let's get into it. Okay, so here's a classic scene from Casino Royale that everybody knows. So they're playing poker. Things are not going well for the bad guy. And boom, you got a few drops of poison into Bond's drink. You know it's his drink because it's the Vesper Martini with the lemon peel. You get the obligatory death stare.
Raise 500,000. Fold.
And there it is. Let's time this. Remember, it's only a few drops of poison, so it's got to be something really powerful, and I would guess he's probably had maybe half of his martini.
Wins.
Waiting, waiting, and boom, he's feeling it. Okay, 20 seconds. That's hard to believe. Not a lot of poisons are going to have an impact in only 20 seconds, especially when it's just a few drops. And now he knows.
Deal now.
Sorry, sir.
He's getting sweaty, that's a clue.
Small blind, please.
Okay, so what did he just do? He created what's called a supersaturated saline solution. And that's an ancient way to induce vomiting. And it does work, but it usually takes a little bit more time, probably about 30 minutes. But the bigger point is that he probably shouldn't be making himself vomit. In fact, this is no longer something that we recommend for poisonings. And the reason for that is that you don't actually know what poison you ingested. If it happens to be a strong acid or alkali, it can actually do a lot of damage to your esophagus on the way out. So he's disoriented, he's weak, he's sweaty. We're getting clues about the poisoning here. Okay, this is crazy. He's connected something to his cell phone, and he's taking the other end of it, and he's injecting it into a vein. And 3 seconds later...
Bond's been poisoned. He's going into cardiac arrest.
Okay, so this movie is like 15 years old, and we still don't have an instrument that you plug into your phone and then you stick in your vein, and somehow someone in a different country literally knows that you are going into cardiac arrest like 3 seconds later.
Stay calm and don't interrupt, because you'll be dead within 2 minutes unless you do exactly what I tell you.
I'm all ears.
Remove the defibrillator from the pouch. Do we know what it is yet? Still scanning.
Okay, so that little needle thing is scanning for which poison he's got in his system. They don't know, but they do know that he's in cardiac arrest, so he needs a defibrillator. So when your heart is pumping, it's basically run by electricity. And that electrical signal, if it gets confused, the heart can't pump properly. And the way to reset that signal is to hit it with a really strong external shock. So that's what the defibrillator actually does. It's basically a device that delivers that electrical shock through your chest into your heart. So you got to put the leads on to deliver the shock.
Ventricular tachycardia digitalis.
Okay, so he is in ventricular tachycardia. They're telling us that. And that means that the ventricles of the heart, which are the main chambers that pump blood out to the body, are in what's called a tachycardia rhythm, which means that they're beating so fast that they're not beating effectively anymore, and the blood flow to the body is reduced, which is why he's about to pass out. But the kicker is that little made-up device somehow detected in the blood that this is digitalis toxicity. And this is where it gets interesting. Digitalis is actually found in various different plants, and it's used to create a drug called digoxin, which we use in patients with something called atrial fibrillation, and it actually slows down their heart rate. But if you get too much of this, you get digitalis poisoning, and that causes abnormal heart rhythms, including ventricular tachycardia. So this part of it is entirely possible. And it also causes things like nausea, vomiting, confusion, and even weakness, all of which he seems to have. The only thing is it usually takes a few hours for that to happen, not a few seconds, and probably it would take a lot more than what you could get into a few drops of liquid.
What the hell do we give him? The kid has amphetamines.
Adrenaline. As soon as it reads charge, lidocaine. That'll work. Bond.
Don't push the red button.
Yeah, do you hear me? Don't push it yet.
His heart's gonna stop.
There's only time for one charge before he passes out. Take the blue combi pen, Bond. Mid-neck, into the vein.
That'll counteract the digitalis.
Okay, so there's a lot going on here. He's just injected this blue liquid into his neck, and what they're trying to do is to get that into the jugular vein, which is that large vein we have in our neck that leads straight into the heart. What it looks like they're doing is actually giving him an antidote for digitalis, which actually exists. It's something that has these little antibodies that basically bind to the drug, to the digitalis, and inactivate it. And we actually use this in real patients, and it works very well.
You're going to pass out in a few seconds, and you need to keep your heart going. Push the red button now, Bond.
Bond, push the damn button.
Do it now!
You can't shock if you don't have electricity. Boom. So he's back. The heart is back in a normal rhythm. The antidote took care of the digitalis. And 10 seconds later, he's ready to play poker again.
Okay.
So overall, that was pretty good. I'd say there was some exaggeration, but I would say that it's built on a solid foundation. But let's look at the opposite end of the spectrum, a really low-tech poisoning, one that everyone's seen. Princess Bride.
What you do not smell is called iocane powder. It is odorless, tasteless, dissolves instantly in liquid, and is among the more deadly poisons known to man.
Okay, so it sounds like a real thing, but it's not a real thing. There is no such thing as iocane powder. So he says he's putting the poison into one of the glasses, and the other guy's got to guess which one it's in.
All right. Where is the poison?
Okay, so now he goes through a whole bunch of mental gymnastics. He's trying to psych the other guy out.
Then make your choice.
I will, and I choose. What in the world can that be?
What? Where?
So he thinks he's
I don't
really
see
clever.
anything.
He's tricked him.
Oh, well, I could have sworn I saw something. No matter.
What's so funny?
I'll tell you in a minute. First, let's drink. Me from my glass, and you from yours.
Okay, so he's had it. Start the countdown.
You guessed wrong.
You only think I guessed wrong. That's what's so funny. I switched glasses when your back was turned. Ha ha, you fool. You fell victim to one of the classic blunders. The most famous is never get involved in a land war in Asia, but only slightly less well known is this. Never go in against a Sicilian when death is on the line.
And he's dead. Okay, so that was 30 seconds. So we know it's an odorless and tasteless powder, but now we also know that it kills someone in about 30 seconds. And it's not like he had symptoms. He went from being fine one second to dead the next second. There just aren't any poisons that really do that. But if you're wondering why Wesley would actually risk his life, the answer is he didn't risk his life.
Who are you?
I'm no one to be trifled with. That is all you ever need know.
To think, all that time it was Shortcut that was poisoned.
They were both poisoned. I spent the last few years building up an immunity to iocane powder.
Okay, this is the best part. He was never going to die because he was apparently immune to it. Now, there is a concept where you can consume relatively small amounts of a toxin and gradually build up the processes that your body uses to detoxify that substance. So basically, you can tolerate more and more of it. And the best example of that is actually alcohol. The more you drink, the better your body gets at processing it, and then the more you need to drink to get drunk eventually. But it doesn't work that way for most poisons. Of course, this is a completely made-up poison, so why not? Okay, now here's a recent one, and it's a shout out to everyone's favorite obsession, including mine, House of Dragon. But it's actually a poisoning from Game of Thrones, and there are a lot of poisonings to choose from, but I think this is the coolest one. So the Lannisters are leaving Dorne.
Thank you.
And he gives a signal.
Forgive me, child. I wish you all the happiness in the world.
And then this happens, which seems like a pretty weird kiss for the situation, but it's Game of Thrones, so you're like, okay. So they get on the boat and they're off. And then you have this touching moment on the boat where Myrcella tells Jaime that she knows he's her father.
I think a part of me always knew. And I'm glad. I'm glad that you're my father.
Just when you think Game of Thrones is getting soft on you, boom, she starts bleeding from one nostril,
Myrcella?
now the other nostril,
Myrcella?
and she's dead.
Myrcella? Myrcella?
And the ship is not far, so you know this has only taken a few minutes. Now her nose starts bleeding, so you know it came from her. And later we actually learn what this poison was.
Qyburn here's the cleverest man I know. Clever enough to learn what poison you used to murder Myrcella. The long goodbye, was that it?
The long farewell.
That's the one.
Okay, again, there is no poison called the long farewell.
How long does the poison take?
Difficult to say. Hours, days. It depends on the subject's constitution.
But death is certain.
Oh, yes. Quite certain.
Okay, so this is already weird because it's a poison that acts as quickly as a few minutes in some people, but it can take days in others, which doesn't really fit into any known pattern for real-life poisons. And that would be very hard to explain from a physiologic standpoint. And let's go back to the first scene. So she had it on her lips, and now she's wiping it off. So that's how it was transmitted. Now, most poisons are swallowed, but some toxins can get through your skin and into your bloodstream. And one of the really deadly ones that comes to mind, and does actually act really fast, is called batrachotoxin. Now, this won't get in through perfectly intact skin, but if there's any break in the skin, like for example, chapped lips, it can get in. And it's an extremely poisonous toxin. In fact, it's found in these poisonous frogs. And they call these frogs poison dart frogs because the toxin's so potent that all you have to do is dip the end of the dart into the toxin and it can take down a large animal. That being said, it doesn't actually cause bleeding. It causes cardiac arrest and it causes paralysis. But of course, in this case, the best part is that even after the poison has taken effect, you can cure yourself with an antidote. So there are antidotes for certain poisons, but something that acts that fast and goes through the lips and something you can reverse that fast, that just doesn't exist. So there are some good ones and some bad ones. Some are plausible, some are impossible, but probably overall the most realistic one is Bond, and that's my personal favorite. But do let us know in comments if there are other poisonings that we should be analyzing. Check out our other content and subscribe for more.